during the community quarantine period. Several Metro Manila mayors have assured the public that they are prepared for the possible shift to a general community quarantine on June 1. But the health department warns the IATF should consider some health factors before making the big move. Maricel Halili with the report.
After 2 months of enhanced community quarantine, the Metro Manila Council feels it's about time to place the region under general community quarantine come June 1. In an hour-long meeting on Tuesday, all NCR mayors agreed that even under GCQ, local leaders must have the power to impose a lockdown on any area within their jurisdiction.
Bigyan din ng authority ang ating mayors with the help of the health experts na pwede sila mag-lockdown ng mga barangay or zona if ever makita po nila na mataas ang cases ng COVID.
The MMC also recommends to the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases not to allow buses and jeepneys in the metro, even under GCQ, as it is impossible to implement social distancing in these public vehicles.
Yung pong ating mga TNVS, taxi, tricycle, yan po okay lang po yan kasi kaya natin i-monitor agad kung ilan ang laman yan. Yung mga shuttle service, yung mga P2P po, madali din pong i-monitor yan. Kasi kung ang P2P po, kung saan yung start ng sakay nila, kaya natin i-monitor yan, hindi sila pwede magbaba pagsakay along the way.
The mayors have also proposed to impose a modified number coding scheme to avoid congestion in Metro Manila. The council also encourages carpooling of 2 passengers. The IATF has yet to approve the proposals, but several local officials are already preparing for the shift. Navotas Mayor Toby Chanco, for his part, says he's adding more isolation facilities in his city.
Ang presumption kasi dito is if more people are out, more people could be infected. So, kailangan damihan yung facilities namin. So, yun ang pinaghahandaan namin. Kasi yung test kits, yung PCR test kits, madami kaming test kits.
Meanwhile, in Caloocan, where there are over 480 COVID-19 cases, 2 of its barangays are on lockdown until end May. Caloocan Mayor Oscar Malapitan says the local government is closely monitoring 3 more barangays for a possible lockdown. Still, Malapitan says they are ready for GCQ.
Nakahanda kami. Ang mga tricycle, pinayagan na namin, provided na isang pasahero lang, isang driver, isang pasahero.
The same goes with San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora, who agrees that NCR has to balance health and economy.
Whether it's MECQ or GCQ, okay naman sa akin kasi ready na ako. But when they talked about the guidelines, and you will see naman na hindi na siya talaga nagkaiba, okay na sa akin GCQ, that's why I voted for GCQ. Because the main difference really is yung restrictions sa mga negosyo, di ba? Ano ba yung mga pwedeng magbukas sa GCQ, sa MECQ, no? So, kaunting-kaunti na lang Parang it's a slow transition to the new normals.
However, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire warns the public of being complacent even with a slowing case doubling time in NCR. She says the IATF still has several health factors to consider before deciding on the mayor's proposal. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
After canceling majority of flights in recent months, local carriers are now planning to restore some of their capacity. That is, if the government decides to relax its COVID-19 measures. Gerard de la Peña with a story.
Local carriers are busy preparing for the possible resumption of flights, as Metro Manila is likely to be placed under general community quarantine by June. Self-check-in kiosks are beefed up to reduce contact with airline personnel. Acrylic barriers are also placed at check-in counters, while stickers on the floor are meant to encourage social distancing among passengers. Airlines such as Cebu Pacific have also planned out how disinfection will be done inside the planes.
In between flights, meron tayong ginagawang paglilinis at pag-disinfect. yung mga lavatory natin every 30 minutes, kahit nakalipad, lilinisin yan.
The Philippine Airlines has also conducted a simulation for the new normal. Social distancing will be optional for guests inside the aircraft, particularly those for traveling in groups.
Tatanungin sila, would you like to sit in the cabin where social distancing is observed or the cabin where individual seats are seated together, are all together?
But like carriers in other countries, local airlines are in dire need of financial help.
The three big airlines in the Philippines would need 7 billion pesos a month each to be able to sustain their operations. They said they are financially hit by zero revenues and zero operations after 2 months of lockdown.
Carriers are facing liquidity problems, making it difficult for them to service refunds brought about by flight cancellations.
The local airline industry is in severe financial distress because it's not been able to fly, it's not been able to generate any revenue.
Carriers also admit it would take time before they could mount all of their flights, as passengers will think twice if it is already safe enough to travel.
Hopefully by June, we will start muna with a gradual resumption of our domestic flights. Medyo malabo pa magsimula yung ating mga international flights by June dahil iba-iba din yung mga restrictions. That is why perhaps the earliest we are seeing for international flights will be by July.
For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration reports that 7,500 repatriated OFWs have finally arrived at their respective provinces. OWWA Administrator Hans Kakdak says they are on the third day of sending home stranded OFWs. He adds that only those whose PCR tests yielded negative results were allowed to travel to their hometowns. Earlier today, more OFWs continue to arrive at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange and at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. OWWA assures they can send back home all 24,000 repatriated OFWs within this week.
Tayo ay tinutulungan ng DOTR, Department of Transportation, para mag-provide ng mounted flights at mga barko at buses para po makauwi ng ating mga mahal na OFWs.
Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara warns local officials who will not allow OFWs to enter their provinces. Guevara says LGUs who will defy this directive from the president may be held administratively and be criminally liable. The Interior Department clarifies that the government's program to bring home citizens is not exclusive to Metro Manila residents. In Wednesday's Laging Handa briefing, Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya explains that there are two initiatives. First, the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa or BP2 for Metro Manila residents who wish to be resettled outside the NCR. And there's a separate program for locally stranded individuals across the country.
Hindi lang po ito para sa mga taga Metro Manila, no? Pwede rin po ito yung mga na-stranded, for example, sa Cotabato at gusto nang umuwi sa Cebu, or yung mga na-stranded sa sabihin natin Lawag at gusto nang umuwi sa Naga, Camarines Sur.
The clarification came after the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region reports 11 students from Cebu who availed of the government's program for LSIs tested positive for COVID-19. According to the BARM Ministry of Health, the students are currently in isolation at the Maguindanao Provincial Hospital. COVID-19 cases in the Philippines surpassed the 15,000 mark. The Health Department records 380 new cases, bringing national total to 15,049. 18 people have passed away from the disease in the past 24 hours, raising the death count to 904. Meanwhile, 3,506 people have recovered from the disease, with 94 new recoveries today. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire explains that the sudden surge in the daily cases is due to the inclusion of positive test results from returning OFWs. She also notes that there are also cases being reported from other parts of the country.
Bago po nag-ECQ, it's 2.5 for the number of cases. And then pagkatapos po, nagkaroon na ho tayo ng 4 days na humahaba na. No? So nakikita ho natin yung magandang indikasyon, pero ang lagi nga natin sinasabi, hindi tayo pwedeng mag-give up or maging complacent. We still need to be vigilant para po hindi po tayo magkaroon ng sudden surge of cases.
Thousands of workers in the hotel industry are at risk of losing jobs due to the quarantine restrictions amid the COVID-19 pandemic. But the tourism department is hopeful that the industry will be able to recover, especially once they are allowed to accept guests. Shaila Francisco will tell us more.
Okada Manila announced it will be laying off more than 1,000 employees. The hotel cited severe losses without any revenue since the lockdown. It will also require a smaller workforce due to changes in operation. Affected employees will receive a notice starting June 15 and will receive their separation pay. The announcement comes weeks after Marco Polo Hotel Davao confirmed that it will cease operations after June 15 due to losses amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Sources say around 75,000 employees working in the hotel industry are at risk of losing their jobs. For the first 4 months of the year, tourism revenues were slashed by 55%. Industry stakeholders say receiving OFWs and other employees during the lockdown is not enough to offset losses. The Hotel Sales and Marketing Association says it may take 2 years for the industry to recover.
Mukhang matatagalan pa. We're in it for the long run. After Marco Polo, meron pa madami pa. Nakakalungkot.
The tourism department is hopeful that the industry will slowly recover once Metro Manila is placed under general community quarantine and others under modified GCQ. The DOT has released guidelines for the new normal for the tourism industry, following protocols from the Health Department and the World Health Organization. For one, hotels may receive more guests. Under GCQ, hotels may also accept more employees from the industries allowed to operate. They may start accepting tourists but are limited to 50% of its capacity under modified GCQ. A maximum of 2 persons may stay in a room, but buffets are still not allowed. The DOT clarifies the guidelines may still change.
Definitely, yung pagbukas, makakatulong yan kasi syempre maraming nawalan ng trabaho. You know naman, Shaila, di ba, we employ 5.4 million people in the tourism industry. So, syempre, we want na mag-open na slowly para unti-unti na rin magkatrabaho. Gusto nating slow but sure para kung ma-handle natin ito, makuha rin natin ulit yung confidence ng ating not only domestic tourists but eventually yung foreign tourists.
The DOT is now coordinating with LGUs in Baguio, Baler, La Union, and Bohol due to a possible increase in tourists once quarantine restrictions are eased. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, Senator Drilon files a bill that will allow companies to continue operating while their franchise renewal is pending in Congress. And Meralco admits it has overestimated the consumption of some customers during the community quarantine period. Hence, it will refund or carry over excess payment. Keep it here on One News for more big stories. I'm Jess De Los Santos and you're watching The Big Story. There may be another basis for ABS-CBN to reopen pending its franchise renewal, but the Senate leadership doubts it will prosper before the upper chamber takes a break. Mean Los Baños has the details.
The National Telecommunications Commission says it has been allowing broadcasting stations to operate pending their franchise renewal in Congress. During a Senate hearing this morning, the NTC says it has never issued a provisional authority to any firm with pending franchise renewal bid. But in the case of ABS-CBN, NTC Commissioner Gamaliel Cordoba insists that they had to issue a cease and desist order due to the quo warranto petition filed by the Solicitor General.
The difference from those instances and on the ABS-CBN issue is that in ABS-CBN, case for quo warranto was actually filed by the Office of the Solicitor General. Kaya po medyo naging untenable on our part to let it continue because of the clear letter of the law in Republic Act 3846 and as interpreted and decided by the Supreme Court in the ACWS case, Your Honor.
Cordoba also emphasized that the law does not allow TV and radio stations to extend operations without legislative franchises. Some senators are in talks about amending the revised administrative code. Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon has filed a bill which provides for the non-expiration of a license where the company has filed a timely application for renewal until the Congress decides on the matter.
The amendment would really encourage the concerned agency or branch of government, including Congress, to act decisively on applications for renewal and to express its decision in clear, unmistakable terms, ensuring that the applicant is not punished for the authority's indecision or inaction.
The NTC says it supports a proposed measure, adding that it will indeed address gaps in the law.
Malaking bagay po ito para po ma-fix yung pong gap sa batas para po kapag may pending matters ay ito po ay considered na buhay pa.
For his part, former Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio insists that ABS-CBN is a victim of discrimination. He says it is clear that there has been an unequal protection of the law when the NTC ordered the network closed over expired franchise.
There is unequal protection of the law. There is discrimination. And I think this bill will correct that. I suggest that the Senate proceed with the approval of this bill.
Once the bill is passed, Carpio says it can be a basis for ABS-CBN to resume operations. The Senate Committee on Constitutional Amendments says it is ready to issue a committee report next week, but Senate President Tito Soto says the plenary will likely tackle the bill in July or August. For News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Meralco announces it will refund or carry over excess payment made by customers for billings during the community quarantine period. This comes after the utility company admits it has overestimated the consumption of some customers. News 5's Ria Fernandez covered today's hearing at the House of Representatives and joins us for the details. Ria, what did we find out from that hearing?
Jess, even lawmakers were not spared from the bill shocks that the Meralco customers are complaining amid the enforced quarantine protocols due to the COVID-19 health crisis. During today's hearing by the House Committee on Energy, Committee Vice Chairperson Jericho Nograles says his billing from April 18 to May 17 amounted to almost 17,000 pesos. That's a huge leap from his March billing of 10,000 pesos, which was also his bill last February, a month before Metro Manila is placed under the enhanced community quarantine status. Meralco explained how they came up with it during the committee hearing earlier. Let's hear it from Meralco's Victor Genuino.
Ang ginawa, basihan po ng estimates for the month of April are for the months of January, February, and March. So, if you compare the actual consumption of the customer during the periods of ECQ, it is actually a lot higher than what we estimated. Ang mga customers po nito, since ginamit po natin ang older months for their estimation, these were underestimated. We'd like to show the committee a sample bill. This is a bill for a typical 200 kilowatt-hour residential household customer.
Meralco adds the electric bill are also expected to shoot up with hotter weather. Nevertheless, Meralco admits that there had been overestimation in the billing of some consumers, which they verified after resuming meter reading. Hence, they advise those who have not yet paid their electric bills in March and April to disregard the billing and wait for the updated version. For those who have already settled their dues, they can claim a refund from Meralco business centers. They also have an option to have their excess payment credited in the next billings. To date, Meralco said meters of 65% of their customers have already been read. Meanwhile, in the new amortization schedule issued by the Energy Regulatory Commission, customers with a consumption of 200 kilowatt-hour or below can make equal and staggered payments of their ECQ and MECQ billings for 6 months starting June 15, while those with over 200 kilowatt-hour consumptions have 4 months to do so. But on the part of former Bayan Muna Representative Nery Colmenares, it will be better to give at least 1 month condonation on the electric bill of Meralco customers.
So ang proposal, Mr. Chair, if we go to the proposal, yung 1 month condonation ng sana ng kuryente for at least 100 or up to 200 kilowatt hours sa lahat ng consumer. One, sa Meralco customers, and second, sa mga probinsya.
Jess Colmenares notes that it will cost Meralco up to 11 billion pesos to do this, but it will be really a big help for our compatriots trying to cope with the economic impacts of the COVID-19 crisis. Several lawmakers supported Colmenares' suggestion. Jess?
Ria, did we get any clarification from Meralco as to what happened, which eventually resulted to that overestimation?
What they were saying is that they got the billing for the April to May billing of their customers based on the preceding 3 months consumption of their customers, and then during the hearing, they showed how they computed for the estimation. But then upon checking, when they are able to go back on field, when their men were able to go back on field and do the meter reading, they found out that some of their customers have indeed been overestimated with their billing. It wasn't exhausted as to how did that happen, the overestimation, but nevertheless, they assured that they will refund the excess payments for March and April.
What's the target here in terms of meter reading capacity? What you mentioned in your report, they already have at least 65% of their customers. What's the target here by June?
Well, what they are saying is as soon as possible, but that's one of the dilemmas of Congressman or former Congressman Nery Colmenares, because in the past there had been a similar experience and it took a long while for Meralco to refund the excess payments to their customers. That's why he is proposing the 1 month condonation to the Meralco customers. But then Meralco is saying that they are really doubling their time so that they can accomplish and finish the meter reading to all their over 6 billion household customers.
All right, thank you for those updates, Ria Fernandez. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights is set to release its report on the drug war situation in the country. In a virtual news conference, Carlos Conde of the Human Rights Watch says the UNCHR study will be out in the coming days. Conde stressed that the drug war continues amid the pandemic, even as Metro Manila Police Chief Debold Sinas said the government's anti-narcotics campaign is suspended for the time being. The UN is expected to present a paper pursuant to a council resolution adopted last year. And these are the other big stories today. President Duterte has appointed former Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Chief Aaron Aquino to the board of directors of the Clark International Airport Corporation. Malacanang says the transfer was made last May 22. The announcement came after President Duterte named PIDEA Northern Mindanao head Wilkins Villanueva as a new Director General of the government's anti-narcotics agency. A total of 277 tricycle drivers in Mandaluyong City have tested positive for COVID-19 through rapid diagnostic testing. The city's Public Information Office said the patients have been isolated while awaiting results of their confirmatory swab test. They are among some 7,000 drivers who went through COVID-19 testing. Drivers need certification that they are negative before they can ply their routes again. The Transportation Department and the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board welcomed partnered with e-wallet app PayMaya to give public utility vehicle drivers and operators more cashless payment options. LTFRB says PayMaya is offering taxi and transport network companies its QR scan to pay capabilities using their app in adherence to the new normal during the pandemic. We'll be back with more big stories after the break. Stay with us here on One News. Santos, and you're watching The Big Story. President Duterte talked with Vietnam Prime Minister Nguyen Phuc over the phone today. Malacanang says the Philippines and Vietnam have agreed to boost cooperation against COVID-19. They cited the importance of enough food and medical supply amid the pandemic. The Vietnamese Prime Minister also assured the President that his country will continue to supply rice to the Philippines on a long-term basis and at competitive prices. Both countries also reaffirmed their shared commitment to pursue peace, security, and stability in the South China Sea. With the expected loosening of shopping restrictions in NCR next month, retailers in malls across the metro are preparing to adjust to the new normal. Dale De Vera gives us the details.
A week before the expected transition to general community quarantine, the Trade and Industry Department inspected several malls in Quezon City. While some are ready to reopen, others seem to be lacking requirements. In Robinson's Magnolia and Landmark, for example, they have yet to install floor markings to direct people to follow social distancing.
May mga directional signages kasi napakalaki ng mall, so kailangan naming ilagay yon para i-guide yung mga tao, lalo na pag marami ng taong bumibisita sa mall. So isa yon sa mga kailangan.
Landmark is not allowing customers to fit shirts, pants, and even shoes for sanitation purposes. But in SM Department Store, customers are allowed to try on shoes. The products will be sanitized by store personnel if it will not be bought.
Wala kaming sa fitting rooms sa mga damit, hindi muna namin pinapapayagan. Pero sa shoes, we allow, pero after nun, we put it in a one plastic and then ikikip namin isa-sanitize.
Several establishments, meanwhile, have readied alcohols and equipment for temperature checks. Some stores say they had to also trim their workforce as less people are expected to come to malls amid the pandemic. The DTI, however, expects the malls to finish the needed requirements before the weekend, in anticipation of the influx of people as Metro Manila is expected to gear towards GCQ.
Meron pa silang mga kailangan gawin to make sure that they're ready by the time na ma-lift yung mag-transition tayo into GCQ. They need to do it fast this week. Kasi kung next week, assuming na mag-transition tayo into GCQ, dadagsa lalo ang tao sa Metro Manila.
For News 5, Dale De Vera, we are One News.
The House Committee on Labor and Employment approves a draft bill for a 35-hour work week scheme as an alternative work arrangement. Authored by Albay Representative Joey Salceda, the bill proposes to institute the shorter workweek scheme for private sector employees. Salceda says the implementation of the new working hours shall be voluntary. Companies should also provide a written information stating the terms and conditions of the 35-hour workweek setup. Salceda explains that the reduced work hours per week can result to increased productivity. Let's take a look at the big stories across the globe. Hong Kong police fired pepper pellets to disperse protesters who are rallying against the national anthem bill. The controversial measure aims to criminalize disrespect of China's national anthem. The song has been booed at several events in Hong Kong as pro-democracy protesters battle for independence from China. The ZEC National Museum opens an exhibition of face masks, signaling that the COVID-19 pandemic will one day be part of history. The masks were sent by the public, each of them with individual coronavirus stories. So far, Czech Republic has over 8,000 coronavirus cases and at least 300 deaths. And all eyes are on this realistic animation of waves in South Korea. A company in Gangnam District, Seoul, created the display for those who are unable to travel due to the ongoing pandemic. The South Korean government has been easing some restrictions as it moves to reopen schools and businesses. Frontliners at the Armed Forces of the Philippines are now able to avail PLDT Smart products and services courtesy of the company's newly launched rolling store in Camp Aguinaldo. The PLDT Smart Foundation recently turned over to the AFP 20 packages of thermal scanners. Each package includes a gallon of isopropyl alcohol, face shields, surgical gloves, and face masks. AFP frontliners also get to avail discounts on PLDT, Smart, and TNT products and services. PLDT Smart is owned by Manny V. Pangilinan, who also runs Signal TV. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News. Good evening.